In the entire 6 weeks of this conflict, we have never heard President Donald Trump use words like this. Ahead of his deadline to escalate the war with Iran, he's appearing to go further than he ever has before. Let's take a look. He says a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. He goes on to say, I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. Trump is threatening to destroy all of Iran's power plants and other vital infrastructure unless there is a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Let's bring in Willie Lowry to talk about this. Willie, this is perhaps the strongest words that we've heard from the president. This is a president, though, who in his time in politics and in business has often used very strong threats to try to get his own way. Is that the play for capitulation here?
David, you can only imagine that it is. I think it is all part of his negotiating tactics. If you go back to the art of the deal, you know, kind of exerting that maximum pressure to get what you want from your adversaries. Now, all of the rhetoric out of the White House, including that post on social media earlier this morning, points to this 8 p.m. deadline as being set in stone. But as we just mentioned, all of that being said, it's clearly an effort, a part of the U.S. administration's negotiating tactics as they look for ways to try and pressure Iran into capitulating. Important to note, though, David, that thus far that has not happened, and mediators led by Pakistan have yet to be able to bring the two sides close enough together where a ceasefire is feasible. But Trump does say that any deal would likely require Iran to allow the safe passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's take a brief listen to the president speaking to reporters yesterday.
We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is going to be we want free traffic of oil and everything else. Mr. President.
Has repeatedly threatened to target civilian infrastructure and send Iran back to the Stone Ages. Again, what we're trying to figure out right now is this simply rhetoric and negotiation tactics, or is this something that he is willing to actually do?
And Willie, the president has been quite explicit about what he would target tonight if capitulation on the Strait doesn't occur. He's talked about power plants. He's talked about bridges. There are arguments those would be civilian infrastructure and questions about whether that would constitute a war crime.
Yeah, absolutely, David. This is a major component of the discourse here in Washington this morning. Democrats have been very vocal about their concerns. Targeting civilian infrastructure can be a violation of international law, which prohibits the specific targeting of civilian energy infrastructure in particular for the purpose of forcing an adversary to negotiate. Now, Trump has brushed aside any concerns that he may be committing war crimes if he follows through with these threats. Let's take a brief listen to quite a remarkable exchange he had with a New York Times reporter yesterday in the White House.
Are you concerned that your threat to bomb power plants and bridges amount to war crimes?
No, not at all. No, I'm not. I hope I don't have to do it. But again, I just said 47 years they've been negotiating with these people. They're great negotiators.
Why would that
and because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
Now, some in the military establishment believe that these targets are fair game because they are dual use, meaning the military also uses and relies on them. Let's take a brief listen to retired U.S. Admiral Andy Loisel.
People will call some of these targets civilian targets, but they're, in effect, dual-use targets. Obviously, they benefit civilians, but they also provide the power to run any of the military systems that they have remaining left of them. And then any of those bridges are also military supply routes as well. So I would refer to them as dual-use targets.
Now, David, the chances of the International Criminal Court potentially pursuing charges against the Trump administration if it carries through with these threats are next to zero. The U.S. is not a member of the court and has long had a very, very complicated relationship with it.
Willie Lowry, thank you very much. Now, one key area under attack this morning is Iran's Karg Island, where 90% of Iran's oil exports occur. This is also an area Donald Trump has threatened to invade with ground troops. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance confirming the airstrikes, but also downplaying them.
My understanding, having talked to Pete and General Kane about this, is that we were going to strike some military targets on Karg Island. I believe we have done so. The president's deadline has been followed by us and everybody else, and he said very clearly, we're not going to strike energy and infrastructure targets until the Iranians either make a proposal that we can get behind or don't make a proposal, but he's given them until Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So I don't think the news on Karg Island represents a change in strategy or represents any change from the President of the United States.
Vance also says he hopes to get a response from Iran by Trump's 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline tonight.